See, everything changed for Carolyn Deacon on June 6, 1998. She changed her life. She got clean. And she went to Florida State Prison. And when she got released from Florida State Prison, she never spoke with Brenda Woodard again. And she never stepped foot in Broward County again. Until yesterday. Too many demons. Too many ghosts. It's too hard to be here. But she's here to pay. And you will hear from her. After the arrest, the adoptive parents bonded Brenda at a jail. And she went to a prenatal visit. It was her first prenatal visit in almost 4 months. And the records will show you that she actually lost weight. And that the measurements of the baby had not increased. And you will hear, the evidence will show you, that her daughter, Danielle Woodard, who had actually moved into the apartment where Brenda was living, the apartment that was being paid for by Roger and Linda Cruz, she will tell you that she saw her mom drinking Colt 45, Cisco bum wine. One bottle is the equivalent of 5 shots of vodka. Smoking crack, smoking cigarettes, and renting the apartment out by the hour so that other crack addicts would have somewhere to smoke. And she will also tell you, and the evidence will show you, that Brenda had her pee in a prescription pill bottle. And then Brenda would take a piece of tin foil and put it over on top of the prescription pill bottle to keep the urine warm. And then the two of them would go and get Brenda's drug tests. As a result of Brenda's June 6, 1998 arrest, she was placed on drug offender probation. Brenda was not a stranger to the criminal justice system. She was not a stranger to drug rehab. But now she was doing both. And as part of her drug offender probation, she was required to do inpatient day treatment. She could go home at night. And when she got there at BARC, which is a local addiction facility, treatment facility here in Broward, the supervisor says to her, the records, the adoption records, will be, you'll see that, it's all over there, we'll introduce it into evidence. 1 dirty urine, Brenda, 1 dirty urine, and you're done. You're going to the prenatal addiction facility. Shortly thereafter, Brenda ended up in the prenatal addiction program, where she remained. So a residential treatment facility. She was not going home until she delivered Nicholas Cruz. Did Linda and Roger know about Brenda's criminal history? Well, we know that Brenda wasn't asked those questions in her adoption intake form, and she didn't volunteer it. But we do know that information was important to Roger Cruz. And he asked those adoption attorneys to do a complete background check. And we and the state have all of the adoption records. They're here. You can look at them if you want when they're moved into evidence. And there was no background check. But what if there had been a background check? Because we did one. What would they have found out? Roger and Linda would have found out that since 1975, Miss Woodard had been arrested continually for mostly drug offenses, drug-related offenses, and that she had been in prison. Did Roger and Linda know that Brenda was drinking and doing drugs? We don't know for sure. but they bonded her out of jail when she was arrested for possession of cocaine. And the evidence will show you that Linda Cruz actually went to the prenatal addiction program and saw Brenda there. It's hard to know exactly what they knew or what they didn't know. But I think it's reasonable to assume that Linda didn't want to know everything. So as Linda prepared for that baby to come home to Parkland, Florida, Brenda finished off her pregnancy at the Prenatal Addiction Center in Coral Springs, Florida. What do we know about Brenda's pregnancy? We know that it was very stressful and chaotic. The majority of her pregnancy, she was homeless and living on the streets. We know that she was using drugs. We know that she was smoking cigarettes. We know that she was drinking booze. Proper nutrition and proper prenatal care were not a priority for Brenda Woodard. She was an addict. You see, the wake of addiction is very large. Nicholas Cruz's prenatal vitamins consisted of Colt 45, Cisco bum wine, crack cocaine, and cigarettes. And because Nicholas was bombarded with all of those things, he was poisoned in the womb. And because of that, his brain was irretrievably broken. Through no fault of his own. Irish poet John O'Donoghue has written, "The beginning often holds the clue for everything that follows." And that couldn't be more true in Nicholas Cruz's life. September 24th, 1998, as Brenda Woodard was being transported to Plantation General Hospital, Linda Cruz was in Parkland, Florida, anxiously awaiting the phone call that her baby had been delivered. They already had the names picked out. Nicholas after her father, and Jacob after Roger's father. Nicholas was delivered C-section. Birth records indicate that he was slow to progress, and that the cord was wrapped around his neck 3 times. He was blue for the first minute of his life, and he had to be resuscitated. And as medical personnel manually pumped oxygen into his little lungs, his extremities remained blue for 5 minutes. And in that hospital room, after Nicholas was born, the evidence will show you, was Daniel Woodard, 11 years old now. And the evidence will show you that she held that baby and thought that he was the most beautiful thing in the world. And she knew that he would have all the opportunities that she never had. Linda Cruz's life was now perfect. She had the man she loved, that she called her husband, a beautiful baby boy, and a beautiful house in Parkland, Florida. And like most new mothers, she was excited, and there were parties, and people bought baby gifts, and people signed his baby book. And Linda introduced 2 people as her parents. You see, when Linda was 2 and her brother was 3 up in New York, they were left in a crib by their mother. And in that crib was a note from their mother. She was done mothering, and she left. So Linda and her brother were raised by their paternal grandparents. Wonderful people in their late 60s, as their father commuted from Long Island to the city as a chef. This abandonment that Linda felt and this insecurity would follow her for the rest of her life. But very few people in Florida knew about that life. Because remember, she had created her own reality. She also sent out birth announcements. And you will hear from one of Linda's oldest friends. Her name is Mary Hamill. Mary Hamill. Remember that name. Because she is so important in Nicholas's life from the very beginning until very shortly before this tragedy. So Mary goes to her P.O. box. She gets her mail out. She gets in her car. She's driving down, opening the mail as she's driving. And then she sees a birth announcement, and she almost gets in a car accident. She immediately picks up her phone, and she calls Linda, and she says, "Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant?" And Linda says, "I wanted it to be a surprise." And it wasn't until years later, when Mary's daughter was actually babysitting for Zachary and Nicholas, that she happened to come across some paperwork, adoption paperwork. That's how Mary found out that the boys were adopted. Mary, one of Linda's very best friends. Linda was really good at creating her own reality. So what happens to Brenda?